I was thinking about starting a new career of like phone sexing since I have this new razor voice,
This is hot. Yeah.
like
Mhm.
bourbon drinking, cigarette smoking voice.
Mhm.
Um I don't know.
Utilize it. Yeah.
What do you think? I need some extra income these days.
It's like, what if vocal fry was like really hot? That's what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I think you're nailing it. I think we can get some more patrons out of this.
Yeah.
So why don't we OnlyFans it through our Patreon?
Oh yeah, totally. I'm down.
Okay.
Well, we can like meet on those logistics later. Um, but I'd like to
Like,
thank you know, the mask mandate being lifted on airplanes
Mm.
for this voice. I'd also like to thank all of the people who don't give a shit about public health for this voice. I've been traveling a lot, and I'm pretty sure I got this on a plane, even through an N95 mask. It's not COVID, because I have obsessively tested like every other day.
I'm sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's like what like colds don't exist anymore, right? It's like you're either healthy or you have COVID.
Yeah. I mean, and like it's weird to have all of these things come back where it's like we're interacting with people and it's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I forgot what it feels like to just like not feel great for 4 days. And it's not COVID, you know.
Oh, well, yeah, it's been more than 4
A
days.
little longer, right?
Yeah, it's definitely been more than 4 days, and I will say that I have never hated having a cold more than this time around. Like not being sick at all since I think the last time I was sick was like December 2019 or something like that. Like it was pre-pandemic.
Wow. Yeah. Well, now you can pull in that extra dough, having
Yeah.
sultry conversations about police
Mm.
abolition, you
I
know, like
mean, yeah, it's gonna be
Right.
super cool when it's just like a friend of the show that's listening to me like raspily talk about how like wet their dick makes me.
oh, how I've missed you,
Yeah.
Shannon.
But I'm also gonna be saying it like this, you know, like it's not gonna be there's not gonna be like any extra. It's just like dry Shannon,
Mhm.
like just
Yeah.
The sexy
stoic.
part is just the rest.
You're
Yeah,
like,
totally.
oh, you like that?
I'm not gonna
Oh.
work any harder than yeah, it's just like, oh, your dick is so great.
oh, fuck.
Yeah, I'm super
It's
good.
like,
I'm super good at phone
yeah.
sex.
You know how some people are into humiliation?
Subscribe
It's like,
now, everybody.
it's almost it's like the step beyond humiliation where it's like sort of passive aggressive, like
Yeah.
sarcastic compliment, like, oh, what a dick you have. Great.
I'm here for that energy. Yeah. Well, I'm ready. I mean, we'll like tweet out the links and stuff later.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm excited for this new endeavor of yours.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah.
2022. Let's all just reinvent ourselves.
I mean, it's time, you know, we've been inside for so long. It's like let's hit those streets with like some new energy.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
And by,
Go ahead.
just by streets, like the phone lines that we've been getting more accustomed to over COVID, you know? Like
Yeah.
it's a safer, better place now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just get some work done.
I'm here for it. You're
All
welcome,
right.
world.
Work from home. Working from home. Working
That's
from
right.
home.
WFH
Mm-hmm.
all day. OF. All right, let's start the show
Yeah.
because we've got a banger today.
Voices, the things they said, voices, some from those dead, all the voices heard. Voices, things we say, voices, they're in your head.
everyone. You have Kempa.
And Shannon.
And Nikki.
Look at us go.
I'm so excited to have Nikki today. We'll get to who Nikki is, but we've had you on before a few times. It's going to be a joy to have you on again today. No Skylar today. Skylar off doing his city Skylar things. No Flo today. I think Flo's making shit up on us.
Yeah.
There's a Measure U committee meeting on the first Monday of the month.
It's not right. It's supposed to be the 3rd.
I think she's distancing herself from us.
That's rude.
There could be
Distancing is over.
there could be a work group meeting.
She said it's like a budgeting thing, apparently. So it's like a special meeting or something.
I like that Nikki is like, no, Flo is definitely telling the truth.
Yeah, don't
I
defend
think there's
Flo, okay?
absolutely a very legitimate reason.
And we're just like, nope, Flo's lying. She's just at home eating bonbons.
I feel like she'd be like, I want to be at home eating bonbons, right? It's a safe space.
She's like, man, do I hate Voices River City.
Fuck that show.
Better lie, I better lie.
But we do actually have Nikki on today. Nikki, gosh, I've known you probably 8 or 9 years. Shannon, you've probably known her about probably longer?
No.
Oh, okay.
Less long.
Wow.
Less long.
A lot less long.
Well, I don't know. I just know you both from similar spaces in homeless sort of frontline work and direct advocacy. So I just assumed.
No, I don't talk to people.
Me either. I'm shy and an introvert. So I followed Shannon on Twitter first, but I'm very pleased to now be friends.
I love that. Okay, well, let me just say who you are. You're longtime community advocate. You've been fighting for unhoused causes for as long as I've known you. You are on the Sacramento Homeless Organizing Committee, as well as Services Not Sweeps Coalition. You are in it, you're doing it. And we just thought we would have you on. You're not a guest today, you're just like a guest host, because we're just 3 host friends chilling, talking about the news of the day. And boy, is it quite a topic today.
Delightful. I can't wait.
Who wants to start us off? So Sacramento's made the big time.
Just what the mayor always wanted, just like some national news coverage, you know.
We're finally in national news. We are in the Washington Post. So a piece came out on, I guess it was April 30th, so that would be Saturday, by Scott Wilson at the Washington Post. Apparently he lives in, I don't know, somewhere on the coast, I believe. But he covers California and the West for them. His very long story. This was a tome.
9 pages.
Yeah, that's
9 pages
wild.
long.
Yeah, 24 minutes to listen.
9 pages of criminalization ideas.
Yeah, you love it, right? You love to see a 24-minute report on how to criminalize our unhoused neighbors. So the title of this piece is "In the Capital of Blue State America, a New Ferment Over Homelessness." Already thoughts on that, the use of the term ferment. Who wants to who wants to give the 5,000-foot view on this 5,000-foot view piece?
It's like, I knew that this question was, I've been on this show before, so I kind of know the format, and I knew that this was going to get tossed out, and I thought a lot about like, how would I answer this question? And I think, to me, like the bird's eye view of this piece is that it's a washed out, misinformed, one-sided conservative piece that attempts to serve homelessness in Sacramento on a platter.
Yeah, I guess that's well put. This Scott guy he parachutes in. That's what you do with news outlets who are national. He interviews who he deems to be all of the big players on a story. When it is a org like Washington Post, all of the people who get the first quotes, the most important quotes, are going to be those in power, right? Those electeds, those business folks.
Right.
And it was no surprises in this one.
No.
And I don't know, Nikki, what is your just overarching thought on this piece?
Yeah. So, I mean, my feeling when I saw it, was, I mean, the first thing that somebody asked was, hey, can anybody post the screenshots or get past this paywall? So firstly, we're having a conversation outside of which can generally be accessed by the people who it's about, right? And so red flag for me. And then when I go to do the screenshots, I'm trying just to do the screenshots because I have a feeling from the Bezos paper that this is going to be pro-carceral for the poor in terms of its theme throughout, even when it engages with people who live outside. So I felt like it was going to be like, I even said the word like barfy, and then I read it and did feel like quite sick that the awful kind of like models that they're trying to implement here could be picked up nationally. To be quite frank, it's like coercive in so many degrees, and we're going to have to fight. That's what this article says to me, and it says it's not just in Sacramento anymore. We're gonna, it's not just in Sacramento. These types of fights aren't just in Sacramento, but this all this specific legislation and kind of like anti-homeless laws that this article outlines and advocates for as a different shade of blue, which we understand to be deep red and truly, bordering on a fascist response. So,
right. Yeah. I think that's a great introduction to this piece. Effectively, let me lay out kind of the overarching thing, what it's about, because I think you two, as experts on this, your takes are certainly more valuable than mine. This piece brings in this reporter sort of taking a look at Sacramento and its homelessness situation and how that sort of expands out to the rest of the state and the rest of the country. Obviously, California has about a quarter of the full unhoused population in the US. In this article, he says 160,000. It's probably a lot more than that, right? Sacramento has, what are the numbers do you think here locally?
Well, we're waiting, but it's more than 10,000.
Yeah, so there's a 2019 point in time count. I think that came out around 5,000.
And that's what the article cites, Dave, but the most recent, so like even since then, numbers have been, and the article says it might be even twice that. And truly, I mean, the point in time count numbers are about to come out, and I think they're coming out at 4 times that. They're coming out around 17 to 20,000. So
that's in our county, and that's an incredible growth. But it's something that advocates, I want to really stress, especially folks like you who work with the unhoused community, as well as housing and renters' rights advocates, have been saying this explosion is going to happen. Like this is, it's already been happening, and it's even worse now. This is it. So basically, he's sort of like trying to give a picture of Sacramento as a microcosm of California. We're the capital. Our mayor is the, homelessness czar at the state level. It's really a place where a journalist would really be chomping at the bit to come in and do his little pithy metaphors on like two rivers merging together and two different
God.
blues of Sacramento.
He never named the native people who lived outside here forever, for all his mention about the rivers and for all his salmon and bison or whatever. He didn't say bison, but salmon metaphors. He said he listed multiple animals,
Beavers,
and beaver, and talked about and discounted humans from the history, both present and historically, right? So we're on Nisenan and Valley Miwok people's land, and that's where this confluence sits, and where the American River Parkway sits, and so and that's one piece of the legislation. So Dave, do you think, because like you said, Shannon and I are already a little too deep in, do you think you could talk about what is it really what is the article talking about? What are the
right
what are the pieces?
So he's discussing some legislation that's being brought forth, both at the state level. Obviously, the Capitol building is here in Sacramento. These are mental health related legislation. And it is just so silly.
And the Parkway Bill.
Yeah. Which are, ostensibly progressive politicians are pushing forward as well. And then he's talking about the local ballot measure that will be on the November ballot that business leaders and other folks have been pushing forward with a lot of money behind it. And sort of talking about like, how do we solve homelessness through these little pieces of legislation? There's a funny thing to me about that, and we'll get to these legislation pieces too, I think. But there's a funny thing to me that like when a journalist comes in, it's the same like the former data guy Brad Brannon, who is now at the Sierra, what's it called? The Sierra, whatever.
Is it Sierra Club? And he wrote that anti-homeless little report. And now this guy at WaPo, like they do not respect you two. They don't respect the experts who actually work in this space, who know the answers, who really, really get their hands dirty on this. And I guess so. Before we jump into the legislation portion, like Shannon, you were interviewed for this piece, right? Like talk a little bit about this, because you weren't in it. You weren't quoted in it. No, but I did sit with this reporter and this is in the scope of the work that I do outside of the show. He came on campus to interview a couple folks, and it was, I think it was pretty clear that this is somebody who was, like you say, parachuting in and didn't even necessarily understand sort of who the people to talk to are. When somebody is like super down to sit and offer an audience to like Jeff Harris, who's like just an incredibly problematic elected.
Let me also name these people. Nikki before mentioned Bezos. That's Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, which owns the Washington Post. Shannon just mentioned Jeff Harris. That's a council member who is probably, if not him, then it's Angelique Ashby, the most conservative one on that dais. And deeply anti-homeless. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. And he also interviewed Amanda Blackwood at the Metro Chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And of course there's interviewed the mayor. There was clearly a lack of like advocate input for this piece, as evidenced by reading it, right? But also just like, I think when the story is leading with perpetuating stereotypes around people experiencing homelessness, and when it amplifies the very like fucked up message that is, punitive, like punitive measures, the carceral system is the only way to fix this crisis, like then you have
What did
a
he do
problem.
specifically in those ways?
So, I mean, when you open up a piece with a person's name and talk about not only addiction but mental health, and then
Incarceration
and
history.
incarceration, and talk and do that before you even like talk about their life, right? Like that has begun the story of dehumanizing them. Because the thing is that a person reading this piece automatically doesn't give a shit anymore about Lorenzo Johnson, who is named outright in this piece, because Lorenzo is a mentally ill addict who has and his niece has spent time, who he lives with, has spent time in and out of the carceral system. Like, this is just,
it dehumanizes others immediately.
And all of us, and that's why you have people like Steve Maviglio quote tweeting this piece and saying this is what good reporting looks like.
Democratic strategist, piece of shit, America's landlord, Steve Maviglio. Okay, can we talk a little bit about, okay, why don't we just do the fun part first?
Are we going to talk about compassion?
Jeff Harris's quote.
Impractical, practical.
Oh my God. When I saw that, I had to put the article down. I couldn't read it for a few days after that because I was like, I can't.
We've swung too far in impractical compassion.
Oh my God.
I mean, when you get to the point where you are like defining your way through like
let me read it. Hold on, I gotta read the quote.
Oh yeah.
Read the full quote. Sorry.
Read the quote. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
All right. So apparently this guy interviewed District 4 constituent / District 5 current council member Jeff Harris.
District 3 current council member.
Here's what Jeff had to say. By the way, Jeff is a guy who went up to a friend of the show and said about her son, who's like 6 years old, he referred to him as like brainwashed, indoctrinated.
Because sweeps kill.
Jeff is a piece of utter shit. He is a vile man.
Also refuses to read the land acknowledgement.
Yes, he does. Meetings. Like at council meetings. That's on record.
Yeah.
Like
no wonder he wants to take back the Parkway.
Take back, yeah. From whom? I'd like like what a disgusting man. So he's interviewed in this piece, and here's his first quotes. From my vantage point, when it comes to the compassion around homelessness, it can be impractical compassion or it can be practical compassion, said Sacramento City Council member Jeff Harris, a former building contractor who took office 8 years ago. Does anybody just want to jump in on that first?
No, can you keep going? No, keep going. Just really quick.
The homeless count in Sacramento was about 1,200 people at the time that he took office, and it has doubled several times over since then. Harris's district, which includes the small camp along 16th Street, where Johnson and Jones live, who Shannon and Nikki were talking about, is home to about half the city's homeless. Quote, I'm getting real heartburn with how far left things are swinging because of this impractical compassion, said Harris. A Democrat, impractical compassion, a Democrat who favors a more aggressive city approach to tent clearing and to criminals who prey on the homeless and other residents. That's never addressed in this fucking article.
He doesn't give a shit about. He actually doesn't give a shit about.
He does not give a fuck.
Yeah, no, but he.
Hold on, I'll just do the last quote. People are not paying attention to the signs on the street about what's really going on down here. Neither are you, Jeff.
He's not on,
this guy's not on the street. He's not on the street.
He's not on the street.
Jeff on the street.
First of all, he has no idea. Like, this is somebody who his compassion extends only to like a very specific set of people, right? And it certainly stops at folks experiencing homelessness who are like unhoused people are not worthy of Jeff Harris's compassion. He has never worked in any way to help support folks in any number of the traumatic experiences that they have to endure as a result of his bullshit leadership.
What
Um,
about the pit stops, though? Just kidding.
right, and I hear
That was a joke.
the
That
pit
was a
stop
joke.
because he brings up
It
the
was a
pit.
literal joke.
No,
because
I know, but I think it's
he brings it
important
up all the time. Exactly.
he brings it up all the time, and his supporters will bring that shit up. But the pit
It was
stop,
a bathroom in a place where there was already a bathroom most of that day.
Exactly.
It wasn't 24 hours. It wasn't. It was one bathroom, and it cost like, I used to know how many $1,000 a flush that pit stop cost, but I've lost it.
Yeah, I used to know that too.
Yeah.
But so I think
Go ahead.
like pulling us back toward Jeff and impractical compassion. The thing is that he is someone who is so like tied to what his idea of a solution is that he's unwilling to see outside of the scope that he has created for himself. So like he's not, when you hear, what does he say? Mental infirmities is Jeff Harris's quote. So when people are living with a mental health diagnosis, or when they are living with addiction, like these are folks who are not worthy of compassion because they're just problematic, right? Because these aren't people who actually want to be housed or to be supported. In his mind, I really do think that's where the practical and the impractical compassion comes in. It's practical compassion if a person is willing to accept the solution that is being offered to them by a capitalist, by a fucking fascist. But it is impractical if they are folks who just want to like live a life of fucking flourishing and like have housing, because housing is a human right. Like
that's it. To him, it's impractical. You just nailed it. To him, it's impractical, the notion that housing is a human right. Like to him, it is a profit building thing that the market should determine. And Jeff doesn't care if people get thrown into the streets to decide on it. I mean, he's probably like a free market purist. That like he's like a fucking Ayn Rand fascist.
He also doesn't care about the then later effect of that, and he's an advocate. That's what the article says, of tent clearing. And what we understand is, I know, an advocate of it. God, imagine that. Imagine being an advocate of it. I mean, people are
a forensic clean advocate, Jeff Harris.
We have to say, like, what does it take? What does the mind space need to believe that is a good thing when that's all people have, when they're not going to be offered solutions that work for their lives? That's what we can say about a lot of this legislation, whether it's Care Court or the Emergency Shelter Enforcement Act here in Sacramento, or the Parkway clearing bill at the state legislature, which I think is AB 2633. There is no clear pathway or requirement for actual housing. No clear pathway to housing. Nope. It's all the same broken system that we've seen since the late 70s not work, right? So we have a broken emergency response system. All of these efforts attempt to double down on that, to offer people one choice, one treatment plan, one this or that. They're not these are not good bills. These are anti-homeless laws. And I'm just gonna encourage folks to look a little deeper on that. There's work out there. They're bad.
And let's get into these bills. But before we do, I think to your point, Nikki, like,
should I talk more shit about Jeff Harris first? Wait,
please do. Yes, of course
you
can. Oh my God, I thought you'd never asked.
I forgot to even say anything about Jeff Harris. So Jeff, here's the thing. He has no problem lying about the issue, and he has no capacity to intake critique about his, like Shannon had kind of mentioned, he's not open. And he's been shared with data that shows about how sweeps do actually killed. You know what I mean? And his response to a child saying that is, you've been indoctrinated. But there's, university studies and models, most recently out of Boston, a model just about one tent clearing. What's the impact? How does that happen? And, folks are studying this because it matters, because it's happening so often, because this is a trend that's bigger in Sacramento. It's why the Washington Post is covering criminalization, coercion is, even our care court bill came out of a Florida think tank. So we need to be wary of this kind of onslaught. It already has been growing as they've continued to not. And that's the other thing about this article. What does it say? It says, oh, for years they've been working on affordable housing, and we just know that's not true. I mean, they've gotten a couple bills in the last couple of years that have done almost nothing so far, and and now they've done something for years.
Yeah. Well,
anybody else?
That actually leads directly to the one thing I was going to say, is that I'll never forget the quote from Joan Burke, formerly of Loaves and Fishes. She said to me when I did a long piece on homelessness, she said, the answer to homelessness is simple. It's enough affordable, livable housing for people. Like, that's it. And like, social housing is a thing we can and should do. It's a policy decision that our Democrats in California are refusing to make. And
nationally, but yes, our Democrats in our blue state, because that's what the article's about.
Yeah, blue state, right. And so like this is the answer. All of these other things, the mental health thing, everything, like, fine, like, yes, you develop mental health issues when you become unhoused.
Yes.
The ones you already have are exacerbated, but
and drug use.
And all of that is, exactly. It's the same thing there. Yeah. It's, you might start using once you're unhoused. You might have done it before.
Just been shown that data too. That it happened.
And he has, yeah,
after, but it doesn't impact his narrative that these people are sick and dangerous, and that's the fucked up part. And that they don't give a shit about their community, which anybody in community with people who live outside knows people give a shit about their community. So they deeply care about their own well-being, their own health, their access to long-term stability and wellness. And they know that this system hasn't gave a shit about them for years. Courts don't care, okay? Shelters haven't worked and they've been harmful to people. And so people know that shit, and they don't need some condescending ass paternalist, like patriarchal fascist, because it comes in with the guns to tell you that you need to accept this service. And it comes in with the court system, which is backed up by what? The guns. So it all rests itself on that. And every person in service provision knows that that's not actually a successful model for care and service provision and pathways towards stability in housing. Like, we all know that voluntary association, that engagement, that harm reduction, that client and participant-centered approaches are what works. And instead, we're doing a complaint-driven, coercive, business-ass model of care that's going to fail because we don't have the money to pay for it anyways.
No.
Yeah. So I think a good call to action, actually, with that you were mentioning kind of a lot of if you actually talk to folks who are living outside, like, you'll understand that, like, nothing, like, all of the narrative that's been fed to you is bullshit. Listeners, like the 500 people who view or listen to this episode, you're already on our side. But a great way to actually fight these fights on, you know, against the local measure, which we're about to talk to in the state level ones, is bring your friends and family out to the distros and have them talk to folks out there, because that will change their minds real fast about like really what's going on and really how these people interact with the state. When the state or the city or whatever touches them, what does it look and feel like? It is not what you're reading about in the Washington Post, or often, actually the Bee actually is kind of nailing it lately, but in your usual daily papers, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have this, you know, like this piece does the thing where it pits homeless rights against public safety, right? Like so we can't afford people their basic rights if they're unhoused if we also want the public to stay safe. Like this is one of the narratives. It's one of the really problematic lines that we hear from people who are on the wrong side of things, because I think the point that is missed is that public safety is like, that's the umbrella thing, right? Like public safety also includes people like unhoused folks, right? Like and it includes housed people. Like the public are the public.
Right.
And
I think Daniel Conway, who is really the guy pushing all of this, he's the former like talker or, you know, kind of policy guy for Kevin Johnson.
Chief of staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an official name for talker policy guy. Chief of staff. Yeah.
He shows his ass.
Kevin Johnson.
He shows his ass fully in this piece when he talks about like, this is how we get our public spaces back. So he's humanizing our unhoused community, right? He is saying they don't deserve this. They don't deserve to be there. This is ours. The ones who are homeowners, the ones who are rich, the ones who have means.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, Daniel, this is stolen land, Daniel. Stop.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to take it all, like we can take it all the way back to like this, the land isn't yours anyway, Daniel and McKinley Village and
Jeff.
That's my big that's like, where I start with it for sure.
So let's start with that, but we can, I think, have a deeper conversation around part of the ways to like get public space back is to offer public housing, right? Like
that's it.
Because then people have access, like for real, go out and talk to unhoused folks and be like, yo, if you had access to public housing versus living where you are, like, what would you rather? And like, people want to be inside. The reasons that they don't accept invitations indoors is because it's by these fascists. The fascists are inviting them inside and instituting all of these rules, and you know, like all of a sudden it becomes this like,
you're not free. You can't. You are not free.
You become a prisoner.
You can't have a baby. You can't have your mother. You can't have your mother babysit your children in your private hotel room offered by DCR, a program run entirely. The whole motel is all of their guests, and they can't say yes, people should be able to have a babysitter. And the way people lose the housing, and now they're not even offering this, y'all. They're offering tents on the ground somewhere else.
Right.
You know what I mean? Surveillance tents where you're searched on the way inside. You know, so on and so forth. Obviously,
it's carceral, and it really is carceral.
Of course it is, yeah.
And that's the thing where it's like, now they're going to try and circumvent the Boise decision, which realized that like, hey, if you don't have shelter beds and you're like rousting people from where they're sleeping in public spaces, like that's cruel and unusual punishment. They're trying to circumvent Boise
Right.
with like some new laws so they can push
And
people into these little tent areas, these camps. And like some of them can be good. There's potential to be good. There's like, there are things we could do if we actually engage with the experts like Shannon and Nikki on this stuff.
and the
But
residents who are going to live there. Like,
yes,
damn,
yes.
could you
But
take into
that's
account?
But like
We
Jeff
have to hear
Harris is
from the
never going to
city
do
and
that.
Daniel. We have to hear from Daniel and the city
Yeah.
first,
Like Amanda Blackwood, I know her very
obviously.
well. She does not know
Yeah,
the
I mean,
first thing that
Emily's
an unhoused
Lane
person
Michaels,
knows.
has she been consulted yet? I mean, and obviously she has been actually, but we aren't going to get anywhere in terms of solutions if we don't listen to people who live outside
Yes.
about what's going to work for them. And this idea that a tent on the ground has already been struck down in the court. It was Warren versus Chico, and they already said that's not appropriate, even under Boise, which is too much gray area for me. Right now, something the city of Sacramento is doing widespread is like towing people's RVs that they use for shelter in their vehicles.
They're
And they're saying,
asking
well,
for
it's not covered
lawsuits.
under
They're
Boise.
asking for
It's not covered.
lawsuits.
They're saying it's not covered under Boise, and they know they can get away with it long enough to make their business people happy, to do whatever it does to get these laws passed,
Yep.
to enshrine their anti-homeless policies. And it's very, very hard for advocates and people who live outside. I mean, they're in a war of attrition against people who live outside.
yeah.
Ask people in District 2, ask people along Lexington, Railroad, Evergreen. Like, people have had their stuff just taken over and over and over, like homes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're 40 minutes in, and I should really touch on the legislation
Yeah.
in this piece. So the first piece of legislation, let's start local. And then we'll like work our way out. It is the piece that the business leaders, quote unquote, push forward, sort of making it compulsory for the city to provide enough shelter beds for, I believe it's 60% of our unhoused community.
Compulsory to accept.
Yeah.
But that's
right?
also, well, sorry, go ahead and finish your explanation.
And I mean, that's actually really, I'm glad Nikki stopped that, because like, wow, what a term. But basically saying like, hey, 60% of our unhoused community like will have to have shelter beds around the city in some way, shape, or form. They don't understand what the business community doesn't anticipate, and what the city doesn't anticipate is this number is going to explode so much that it will put the city in financial ruin to try and make this many shelter beds.
They've been told that.
And it's going to get higher and higher because of our problem with general capitalism. And it's like, they're not ready to have that conversation. I can name one, maybe two council members who are ready to have that conversation. So basically they're saying we're going to make X amount of beds. And I think their idea is that, well, 40% of people will say no. They'll refuse housing or shelter beds or whatever. 60% will accept it. So then we can start shuffling them around again. That's not how it's going to pan out. No. Anyway, this is going to go to the ballots in November, basically saying they have to have X, 60% amount of the beds of people experiencing homelessness. And then once they have that, then they can start, according to them, what the business leaders believe, which they're fucking wrong, is that they can start enforcing sweeps and things like that. But that will still go against Boise, and they will still lose in court if and when it comes to that, in my opinion.
I keep calling it the Conway ballot measure, but it is
the Conway ballot measure.
Yeah, so the Conway ballot measure, I also don't ever want to have a conversation about this ballot measure without reminding the community that the way that this measure ended up on the ballot was by activating inequitable practices, and by making sure that all of these powerful people with money were able to get in front of the council and just completely go around the very expensive process of getting signatures to put something on a
It was an
ballot.
emergency meeting. It was an emergency meeting on
And
a Wednesday, unannounced. An emergency.
Days after
the
biggest mass shooting we've ever had in our region.
And we've talked about this before. Like we don't have to like necessarily unpack the the injustice of that whole thing. But it is, I think it just goes, it does go toward the point of these business leaders are willing to do anything. They're willing to take advantage of anyone in order to further their cause, which is to make sure that they stay comfortable, to make sure that folks, the unhoused folks are like out of sight, out of mind. Because what this measure essentially does, should it pass, is it gives law enforcement the green light to say, pick up your stuff and move to wherever, right? Which we can only assume is going to be somewhere outside of city center, outside of like the spaces, the public spaces that they currently find themselves, which they're fucking public spaces. Unhoused folks are the public. Let them have their spaces.
So the public supporters of this ballot measure are, of course, Region Builders. That's Region Business, I think now. That's Josh Wood. Josh is like a total piece of shit. Those listeners might remember that he once tried to rat fuck, and they beat us. A real renters' rights ballot measure, he tried to defeat it by rat fucking it, by putting a person on who's not a renter within our city, and just had him lie on TV about it. Like, Josh, you are the scum of the earth. And so obviously they have him on to run this thing. This is also supported by Visit Sacramento, the downtown partnership, all those business groups. It's supported by the Metro Chamber, as we said, Amanda Blackwood. And I'm really disgusted that she's agreed to be the face of this, to try and put a nice spin on this. It's just really
she
vile.
talks about, there's people dying. So here's what I'll say. They're not good faith actors. These people who have been, people, the business districts have fought against everything and fought for everything that would harm people and fought against everything that would help people. Our business districts wrote a collaborative letter. They got together and they did a planning meeting or something, or maybe they didn't even, because we heard some of the board members hadn't even heard about it, but a collaborative letter to the city council saying that churches should not be able to shelter people within the confines of a business district or nearby. And so, can you imagine?
Hateful people.
They fought
like,
for the anti-camping
Amanda,
ordinance.
like, you might not believe this stuff, but you represent these fucking people, and you're their mouthpiece right now, and that's really fucked up. So
she probably believes it, and also this is the dangerous thing, is that people probably, it's okay because people probably also believe that that advocating for these type of solutions is going to be helpful. And I'm telling you, it's a fallacy. It's a problematic fallacy. Paternalism is not going to work in this case. We need real solutions built by the people on the ground. Yeah. And this is forced shelter, or forced displacement. Those are the two options: forced shelter, forced displacement, and enforcement of anti-camping laws, which means potential misdemeanors, engagement in the court system, arrest, so on and so forth. And so it really is about criminalization and displacement, and there's a 4-step process built into the thing. It's not a 4-step process to housing; it's a 4-step process to criminalization. And so that's what we need to. We need to gut check. It's, oh my God, go ask Daniel Conway. There's the point.
I'd rather
the
not.
Point, the point is they've decided that the goal is being able to displace people. And that's where they come from. They come from, this is our concern. People are living poor in our site. It's concerning to us. It impedes my pathway
We
around
cannot
town.
see
I
poverty.
cannot have the poor in my site. And they're saying that instead we should make the poor go in these places or remove them from site. Eventually, the ultimate place in this process is jail, because enforcement fully of anti-camping ordinances is jail. And it's not, and there's no, and this is the point, is that it's not a stepway to housing. It's not, they're talking about, accountability for the government to provide housing. No, there's not that in it. There's not actually, here's the stepway, here's where do you provide. This is what is so disingenuous about this article, is there's no true critique or reflection on the way both the federal, state, and local governments have abandoned real housing solutions in our lifetimes, and certainly probably before.
Yeah, I mean, and again, the crux of it to me is social housing, and they don't even touch on any of that. It's all carceral, it's all punitive. I mean, it's really a nightmare piece of work. I think I've been thinking about like how people are going to fight it, because there's a lot of money behind it. The numbers just dropped on this, and they have a lot of money behind them, and it's a lot of real estate folks. It's a lot of developers. Mark Friedman, piece of shit. Fuck you, Mark. Put $25,000 down on this. He did the Sac Kings Arena. Oh, speaking of the Sacramento Kings, Matina,
they're still stealing from the general fund right now.
Yeah, they're still stealing from the city. Matina Kolakatranis, sorry, I didn't pronounce that correctly, but you are still a piece of shit. COO of the Sacramento Kings put another $25,000 down in support of this. LDKV Management, another $25,000. And then a group called Sacramento Moving Forward, which is like got bankers behind it, like a bunch of pieces of shit. And also, of course, once you look at the address, immediately it's just the absolute scum of the earth at I Street Public Affairs, these conservative Democrats pushing this and making this a thing. So it's like, it's really the worst of the worst behind it, but there's a lot of money. And I've been wondering kind of like how people can push back, because I don't know if we're going to have the money for it. So like, I think you have to kind of do some clandestine messaging here, right? Like maybe like street art, or like things that really show folks like this is what's wrong, and these are people we can't trust. I don't know, that's kind of what I've been wondering about. Like, what's the best way to fight this?
I mean, I think that one of the thing that sort of provides me with a little bit of like the tiniest bit of hope is that Sacramento advocates and like grassroots orgs have been working so hard and have really like kept their finger on the pulse of all of these like very unjust actions by our local electeds, that you've got folks with like with this energy to fight injustice and to like work on messaging things well and doing things like, if it's street art, if it's a pop-up here, if it's doing, community education, and then also just like folks who are willing to sort of like have these conversations with folks in their circles of influence and sort of like reframe the narrative in such a way that it is like factual and actually talks about the harm that is being done and actually like the violence that a ballot measure like this really just like perpetuates, right? Like if you're voting, if you read this ballot measure and you're like, yep, we should definitely do that, you are a violent person and you are voting to hurt humans.
I think that's really important. And naming, so for our side, you know, we have a larger platform. Naming Daniel, Josh, Amanda, like, you're violent people.
Yes.
Your actions are going to result in people's deaths.
Right.
And letting the public know about that.
And you can say things like, how are we going to prevent another 200 people from dying on the streets? You know, in this WaPo article, which Amanda Blackwood is quoted as saying that, you know, we've got to get folks housed. Is, you know, what are we going to do for people? Well, what you do is, instead of spending all of this fucking money on criminalizing,
on harming them,
people, on committing violent acts, give them housing, right? Like, we spend tons of money on data acquisition. We spend tons of money on, you know, messaging. They spend tons of money on data acquisition, on, you know, ballot, like communications around ballot measures, around, you know, branding all of their bullshit. Spend all of that money on public housing, and then you wouldn't have to do all this shit.
You see where we get, right? And this is also part of the problem, is like, where it's not just these like private groups, it's also a public issue, right? I recently got an email from Sacramento County, who's hired a consultant to not discuss how to improve services within Sacramento County to people who live outside, but a consultant about how to communicate to the public about what their services are. So it is a PR consultant. And I'm just like, what? I haven't responded to the email. I'm going to respond, but I'm just saying, like, God, Barfy, I'd rather talk about how do we get these services better? How do you communicate to the people within your services? I'm sick that you're trying, and I get it. You don't want to act like you're doing nothing, but the best way to do that is to really serve people well and get them into long-term housing solutions. And nobody can say that they're doing that, which is why this effort is disingenuous and aimed at moving people around. That's truly the goal. And no, you know, you can ask yourself if you'd want to check out. There are plenty of reasons to be in a shelter, and there are plenty of reasons to not be in a shelter.
There's more reasons to not be in a shelter.
100, and we need to respect people. We need to respect people's autonomy, and the idea that we would take it away and say this or else, this or nothing else, is just so absurd and violent. And like you were saying, it's people on the ground who might be reading this or seeing it on their ballot. They might not see it as violent because the way that their narrative spinners are trying to spin it, and they, like you said, they have a lot of money to do this. It's going to look like humanitarianism, this and that. Yeah. And I can say that someone recently shared with me, thank goodness, a comrade that you had already mentioned, had shared in a group message about what was the Nazi party line about beggars, homeless people at that time. And they were about to put everybody into a, quote, winter shelter so they wouldn't starve.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing too.
It was the precursor, and it happened before internment of Jewish people. Yep. It was in the lead up. And so really thinking about what is the trajectory when we're moving towards and someone said this at the council meeting, and it was great. I don't know who said it. It was a public caller. And they said, we're about to bankrupt the city to build internment camps.
Yeah. And Shannon used the term fascist a couple times already. And like in my head, I was thinking like, this will roll some libs' eyes, I think, when they hear that. But it's like,
Yeah, but
it
you
is
have to.
nowhere near as silly as they think it is. Like
It's not.
what do you think this
No, it's not
compulsory?
silly. It's not silly.
I think you
No.
also just like we have to call it, and I know we need to wrap up, but we just
Oh
like
no, I'm gonna go long. Sorry,
call
Skylar.
it like
We're going long.
call it like we see it. Like you have people in positions of power who are trying to force people who are living in poverty to make very specific decisions that only benefit the people in power.
Right.
That is fascism. Like, and if
Capitalism.
that like it's capitalism, it's like it's bullshit, harmful, fucking violent ass behavior. Like it's not smearing smearing red paint over a thing that is not actually the bad thing, right? Like this is actually harmful. Spend time in
Right.
any shelter in this county and tell me that that's a dope place to send someone. Like spend time standing by while people are swept and tell me that that is a humane way to engage
100%.
people who are already traumatized. Like
Yeah.
you can't none of these like the ballot measure which is the Emergency Shelter and Enforcement Act of 2022 or
I just call it Emergency Shelter Enforcement.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know why it's such a long name. Like that AB 2633, which is the Parkway bill. This like
Can I start getting into that actually?
Yeah.
Or did you want to finish your thought?
Yeah, let's no.
I mean, like my point was that none of these like the ballot measure and these legislative pieces are not actually, they're not human centered.
Right. They're not solutions,
right.
they're punitive.
Exactly.
Fully.
Right.
Full stop.
Right.
I just want to mention before
they're not user design as some people in other industries. They're not user design, which Mayor Steinberg participated in some dumbass.
Yeah, let's design think this. No, so the one thing I just wanted to say before we move away from the local one is that like Josh Wood of Region Business / I Street Public Affairs tried to rat fuck and successfully, was a part of the people who beat real rent control here, which led to our unhoused tsunami, which we have today. And now he's fighting to criminalize these folks even more. Like this man is I don't know how low I can say he is. The most vile person.
I mean, we've got a lot of them here,
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It says, oh, my dogs have entered the room. It's as common as the next person. He happens to have more power, influence, money. This is a narrative problem, and he has too much control of narrative. A lot of people on this kit do. And you asked earlier, what's it going to take? I mean, contributing to and changing that narrative is important, and understanding, like Shannon said, the narrative, where does it exist? Where does the narrative about homelessness really exist? Because this is what the Washington Post did, right? It made It made a narrative exist kind of up here, looking down on homelessness. And the narrative around homelessness, you can go here. Hey, Rue, go downstairs. The narrative around homelessness really exists very much at a street level in the encampments with the person walking that doesn't even have a safe encampment to stay in. So that's the other thing. We can move to the they define an encampment as anything more than 4 people.
So
It's just so absurd. Yeah,
I want to
we can
wrap
move
within
on.
like
So bad.
18 minutes if I could. So let's try and touch on the two state things. Let's talk about the first one that's basically a local legislator trying to criminalize homelessness on the American River Parkway, which is the public county land up and down the American River. This is Kevin McCarty, of course. What is this bill?
It's AB 2633, and it is to remove unhoused folks,
Campers.
remove campers,
That's what it
campsites,
says
and
that's what the
fires.
legislation says.
Yeah, campers, campsites, and fires, and it's and fire pits, and it's all, the whole thing is like, you know, we want to clear these things out. We want to clear the campers out because of like fire hazard, and that's where the Sierra Club comes in, right? And they have that whole report about how unhoused folks have caused all of these fires and they're ruining the parkway, which is the crown jewel of Sacramento.
If I never hear that fucking term
phrase
again.
again.
The crown
Oh
jewel
my God.
of Sacramento.
Fuck you.
Fuck off.
Oh.
And some of the local supporters are so it's AB 2633 is, if I remember correctly, Ken Cooley's bill, but McCarty and Cooper are supporting it.
All Democrats, right?
All Democrats, yeah. Well, you know, a
Right,
special
It's
shade of
blue,
Democrat.
So. Exactly. A special shade of blue here.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and this is, it's not unlike you know, the things that we're hearing locally, because there's still in this bill the counties, like local jurisdictions, would still have to offer shelter to people. So we're still doing that thing, right, where it's like the fascists get to feel good because they're offering shelter. And there was a press conference that took place in the middle of last month, where McCarty and Cooper were present, and they held that press conference, I suspect very strategically, at a location where last year a young woman was raped and murdered along the parkway, and so they of course
did that there.
It was about a mile away from where that happened.
Fucking disgusting.
It's gross. Yeah.
About a month. Yeah.
It's gross.
Yeah.
So, and of course that whole, I guess, no, I think that actually happened in like January. Anyway, her name was Emma Rourke. We should, she, you know, and so of course it's like, it's this thing where they do the like, people who are ruining our parkway are also criminals because they're rapists and they're murderers, and we got to get them off the parkway, and they're burning all of this, you know, the parkway is just going up in flames, and over 550 fires, and it's, you know, it's like, and they can say things, and McCarty did say things like, not all homeless people are criminals,
You're
but
still dog whistling though.
It's 100%.
It's absolutely. And the whole legislation is, and there was even, so there was another McCarty event that happened that I'll talk about. The walk, yeah. The walk. McCarty did a walk maybe last Saturday. I was out of town, but there was some chalk art put up beforehand around sweeps around this bill, opposition to this bill. And of course, people from Friends of Sutter's Landing were called immediately, showed up, tried to intervene, brought out water jugs right at that time, you know, to try to, and there was too much chalk art for them to get really at that time. But they were holding a walk the next day, McCarty was, to talk about, oh yeah, the parkway and this bill, and really like, you know, whatever. And this whole conversation misses what conservation is really about. I mean, they stood there around the petroleum pipeline notice that goes straight into the ground, you know, that is a that is a pipeline right there. It misses the whole conversation, and it goes straight to criminalizing people who live there without providing reasonable, real solutions that any of us would want to be afforded if we were in that situation. And so it's disingenuous. It's aimed at criminalization, and people have been living on that parkway longer than anyone has called it a parkway.
Oh,
It's longer
totally.
than
Yeah.
anyone has called it Sacramento. And so their idea that humans are outside of the ecosystem or too damaging to the ecosystem, they need to work humans into the ecosystem and figure out a way until they make housing whole for people. Need to figure out a way to incorporate humans into that ecosystem because they are a part of it already.
Very well put. Is there anything else we want to cover on that? Because I did want to cover the last bill too.
Nah.
Can we talk a little bit about this mental health bill where there's like a mental health court?
One second. In the morning, they were pressure washing all the messages off. So though, free speech, but they came out and they pressure washed all the messages that were.
I was there the night before. My partner and I went down to just go play Frisbee on the Parkway, which, like, by the way, it's perfectly clean. These people are fucking out of their minds. Like, it's fine. Like, I go there all the time. And we were hanging out with the Chalkers, and they were cool as hell, and they were doing good stuff. And, you know, that the head of like Friends of Sutter's Landing came out and was like, well, you know, like, you're not listening to the other side of the conversation. And then, like, of course, the next morning they come out and try and like blast out everything that we're saying, right? Or they're saying. They're just shitheads. They're absolute fucking trash. I'm swearing more than I usually do, but I just fucking despise
I'm on the show.
A lot of pieces of shit.
Yeah, when I see Shannon, I can't help but
You just can't help but say fuck.
Sorry,
let's talk
Mickey.
about Care Court.
Care Court?
Yeah. Someone tell me what Care Court is. What is this idea that like Gavin Newsom came up with, apparently?
It's total trash.
Oh no, he didn't. No,
I mean, this is Care Court is it's, you know, we talk about right to shelter. Care court can be thought about as right to mental health. And when we say right to anything, it's not that, right?
Yep.
Like if
Compulsory.
if people in power are saying right to anything, it is compulsory. And the way that this plan was unveiled by, you know, our Governor Gavin Newsom, and it's to create like a civil court system to compel people into mental health treatment. And what this is, it's moving through ledge with two bills.
Goes into appropriations. Yeah.
And,
one was dropped, and the other one's moving forward.
Okay, so
I think Assembly bill was dropped and Senate bill is moving forward.
So it's SB 1338 is what's attached to Care Court, and what it is folks who have mental health diagnosis and criminal background, like there's this they're trying to compel people into receiving mental health treatment. I said criminal background because I was thinking about mental health court in Sacramento. I wasn't thinking about.
I don't think you do have to. It's any petitioner, right? Any petitioner. It's just
it could be a family member. It could be like who.
It could be any random ass person.
This is like
an abuser,
conservatorship, like that level of
and they're
quote
like,
unquote,
no, it's not conservatorship.
It can be, or another forced treatment plan that is offered by a judge, which let me tell you, judges are not the best arbiters of treatment plans.
No, are you fucking kidding me?
And there's no built-in support. People can, there's no, it's totally an attempt. So it's specifically the governor's office mentioned that the in this article actually that it only would serve 7,000 to 12,000 people across
For
the
2
state of
years.
California. According to the qualifications for entry to
Right.
it. But
The same article that
problem is-
estimates that there are 160 unhoused people in our state.
right, and the same article that says that exactly. So what is the real? And this is like Sacramento incarcerates 40,000 people a year in our county jail. So this is a very drop in the bucket. How much money are they willing to pour into the Judicial Council? I mean, of course, the Judicial Council is like, sure, give us the money and the power, but they are not the experts on people's mental health. And court has never cared. It's not caring. Caring would
Court.
be
What
care.
a fucking
No, thank you.
oxymoron.
Housing
It's so gross.
would be care. Housing would be care. Real care.
I'd say
we're
Orwellian if
communities-
Orwell didn't suck, but like, come on.
No, it is. It is. It's certainly double speak.
Like, our local. I mean, and Care Court expands beyond local, but beginning locally, when we have folks who cannot remove like mental health from criminalization, from homelessness, like all of these things are tied together, and it equals like we have to it equals like punitive carceral, like quote unquote, like they think these are like solutions, right? That we have to, I think it's a really, like the call to action is that if you're hearing like this is, we're talking about election season, right? And we've got people who are running for city council. If you have people who are saying like homelessness or mental health and criminal background and addiction equals homelessness, these are not the people that you want to be representing communities, because these are the folks who are going to end up being, you know, your assembly members and your senators,
Right.
and potentially your governor, and they're going to come up with these like fucking batshit ideas that just are violent ideas.
To me,
we're
looking
not
at it
talking
too,
about
it's
Ashby and Guerra.
it's
you know,
totally
right now.
backwards, because it's like we know how hard it is to get like our friends who don't have housing into court on the right date and do this and that. Like, what do you think Care Court's gonna do? Like, how do you think Care Court's gonna be any different from fucking any of that? Because you don't know where they live.
And like,
Shannon, how hard is it?
Sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, stop
Shannon, how
saying
hard is
this.
it?
We keep. Yes, let's continue to try to fight for the mic. I think. Okay, I'm gonna go.
You're like fighting to like give each other the mic, though. It's really cute.
Okay, go. But you go. But okay. So what I was gonna say is we have to stop doing the like civil punishment is better than criminal punishment, you know, because that's the thing that happens. Like right to shelter was that, Care Court is that. We're talking about civil court. It's not so bad. Bullshit.
It's
bullshit.
bad.
It's
Get to
bad.
court.
It is bad.
You get to court. Exactly. In COVID, you get to court. And also, just like Shannon, that was the question, is like, how hard is it, like at this juncture, all these things kind of like require or act like the state is going to legitimate some type of access to shelter and or mental health care. But I mean, what does access to either of those things really look like right now? And what does it mean for the city or municipalities to attempt to grow that?
It's another fucking barrier. It's creating more barriers for people.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Anyway,
like they don't, there's no.
Care Court is trash. AB 2633, the Parkway bill, is trash. And the Conway ballot measure is trash. And by trash, I mean that all of this criminalizes humans who are poor. It
So
robs people of basic human rights,
yes.
and
Mhm.
just say no to that.
So I got to wrap, or
Yeah.
else Skylar will murder me in my sleep.
All of
LA
us.
Times, please don't report on that.
Oh God,
But
Skylar is not a murderer.
I think there's a call to action here. For those two bills that you just mentioned, reach out to your senator and assembly member at the state level in California. Let them know that these are punitive, carceral, and they are not helping unhoused people in any way, shape, or form. And push for them, social housing. That's how we do it. That's how we win. That's how we get people into housing. And then the other side of it is on the local level, this Conway measure coming in November. We've got 6 months. We've got 6
Right.
months to fight this. So let's organize. On May Day, on Sunday, I went out on Capitol Mall very briefly and saw all of these amazing organizations coming out. We are building power right now. We can win these fights. So let's talk creatively amongst ourselves about how we can win this one, because Daniel, Josh, Amanda, they don't have anything on us if we can use people power to beat them.
I was also thinking, as we were recording, I was thinking about I really wanted to just have some practical compassion. And I don't know, if if a number of people happened to send a bunch of Pepto-Bismol to the office of Jeffrey
It's practical
Harris,
because he's having heartburn.
because he's having
right now.
heartburn.
He's having heartburn. Some Pepto.
I want to
don't know.
empty a dump truck of Pepto on his driveway.
I mean, I think it's 915 I Street, Jeff Harris.
Yeah, that's it.
We will definitely have to bleep that out, but I love that.
No, I mean that's the city.
Oh, that's City Hall.
That's
Okay,
City Hall. Yeah.
No,
I thought you said his address, and I was like,
no, damn.
No. 915 I Street is City Hall.
Honestly, if anybody else wants some Pepto, they can come out and grab it out of the pile too out there. So that's good.
Totally.
Yeah, come on out to City Hall. Get some Pepto.
Get some Pepto, some Tums.
Okay.
People already live there.
Yeah, I thought you were doxing.
I love that. We gotta stop the show.
What a wonderful way to end the episode. Anyway, folks, if you love us, we love what we're doing. We hope you love what we're doing. Please become a patron. Voices River City. Actually, no, patreon.com/Voices River City. Little as $5 a month. If you go up to $25 a month, you get a t-shirt and a mug. We're going to do a patron only meetup pretty soon in the next few weeks. I'll talk to Shannon offline. I'm hoping that's going to be in her backyard. But until then, just thank you all for what you do. And honestly, Shannon, Nikki, I couldn't be prouder to be someone who knows you and to know people who are fighting this fight. So thank you.
Gee, that's so nice. Okay, listeners, you know where to find us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.